Well, Jim, I've told you this before we started filming, so I'm going to tell you again, I really appreciate you sitting down with me today.
It's a joy. I'm glad to be with you.
I know that's not the first time you've heard it, but I think anybody that does rural advocacy cut their teeth on Ann Richards and Jim Hightower. So it's a real joy for me, and I appreciate it. I think there are a lot of people that have read your stuff, they listen to your podcast, they know the battles you fought over the years, but one thing I'd love to talk about in the beginning is just to go back to the beginning and ask you about where you were born and raised, and what was your connection to agriculture at the time, and what put that fire in your belly to just be a hellraiser for the rest of your life?
Well, just growing up in Denison, Texas, this little town up on the Oklahoma border, right on the Red River. We were one flood away from being Okies. The river moved. Anyway, my folks, both of them had come off farms, tenant farms, and hardscrabble farms during the Depression, and then had a small business in the town of Denison. And they and my Aunt Eula and Uncle Ernest and cousins and uncles and all that around there, they were all connected to farms. Some of them were farmers, but it was that general kind of progressive populist instinct that people had. I became a populist the honest way, which is I would hear my father, having to talk about go hat in hand to the bank each year, and the hardscrabble, and how the oil companies ran the legislature, and this and that. So it was they were those kind of people. They were Main Street merchants, farmers, railroad people. That's who I grew up with, and so the politics just came out of that spirit.
Just the way you lived your life and the way they lived their life.
It was life.
My dad passed away when I was 5, which is a really bad thing, but one of the advantages I had growing up because of that is that my grandfather, who grew up during the Depression, became my role model. And all those old slogans like, they're letting us fight for crumbs under the table while they're eating steak up above. And if they've got you pointing at the guy beside you, you're not pointing at them. So I understand what you mean when you talk about that.
My father, for example, he didn't know he had a political philosophy, but it just came out of him. And again, in terms of real life, and he expressed his philosophy to me without knowing it was philosophy. In these words, he said, "Everybody does better when everybody does better."
Yeah, I've heard you say that, and I love that.
Yeah, and because that was their experience. The big shots knock us down, but the people themselves rally. And if a community is prospering, beginning on the farm, then that spreads out, and everybody does better. So that's an honest economic program, much less a philosophy.
Jim, you got me started studying something back in the 90s, and the story about me, if I can just be a fanboy for just a minute, okay? I used to work my hard work week up in Fort Worth when my 2 littlest ones were born, my oldest kids, and every Friday night I'd walk to the back of the house with my son, and he would climb up on my lap, and we would listen to NPR, and they would have a report at the end of each week, and they would just play all kinds of sound from you and Ann Richards, just giving the Republicans hell. And my oldest son still remembers that. But you used to talk about something back then, and I want to dig into this a little bit, that these progressive roots, they're not as far separated from us as we think. I've heard you talk about the Grange movement, and on the same streets where we see MAGA and Trump flags now, we had farmers and ranchers marching in progressive movements in the late 1800s. Why aren't we talking more about that, other than folks like you and me and the late Ann Richards? And why do you think our families have forgotten about that? Because, Jim, they were fighting the exact same things, tariffs and the transference of wealth and all these things. What's caused us to forget our past?
Well, the deliberate decision by the powers that be, who don't want that history. They want the courageous individual, the self-made man, that sort of stuff. And again, my father and mother, they knew they didn't create their possibility of prosperity. They were big Roosevelt people, big New Deal people, because that was an investment in community and local people, not in trickle-down economics, but as I put it, percolate up economics.
Right.
And they understood that instinctively, and that formed the New Deal. It formed the politics, but then money comes in, and politics change.
Right.
And that's an ebb and flow. We have that back in the 1800s, as you say, the actual populist movement, the Farmers Alliance, that began out here in Lampasas, Texas.
That's right.
And, 4 farmers sitting around a kitchen table saying, we got to do something, because this isn't working. And
they were just crazy enough, Jim, to say, you know what, we better get women and people of color involved in this movement too.
Exactly.
A damn long time before it was popular to say that.
As one of their leaders said about black people, they were having a convention of the populist movement, and a motion was made. We need to bring the black community into this. They need to be on the board, not just members, but actually help to govern this thing. And there was opposition to that, of course. And this guy said, they're in the ditch just like us.
That's right.
We're the same ones. And,
that's right.
Jesse Jackson used to say, we might not all have come over on the same boat, but we're in the same boat now.
Yeah, I love that.
and people know that.
I'm going to steal that one from Jesse through you. That's
fine.
what I'm going to do.
Right. But that's so the politics built up in that period. And they created something called the cooperative commonwealth. So they knew that cooperatives could do anything that a corporation could do, yet it was a democratic organization.
Right.
So it would allow the individual to have power, yet with a community aspiration to have a progressive society. And so that was a big change. And of course the bankers fought that, and so they killed the populist movement. The bankers pulled the plug, and the railroads did too, with their control of transporting the commodities. But the labor movement was a part of that. The Farmers Alliance.
Genesis was there, right?
Yes. And so we had that movement, and then when that got knocked down right around 1900. But the progressive movement then arose with Fighting Bob La Follette up in Wisconsin, for example, Eugene Debs in the labor movement, and that percolated up and then into the New Deal. And we had very progressive government, including at the state level. And here in Texas, we were a very progressive state, a very populist state at the founding. We had, for example, you could not form a corporation in Texas. You had to go to the legislature and get a 2/3 vote.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
To form a corporation. You were not allowed to create a bank. There were no banks. Because they gouged people.
Right.
They had other ways.
They'd learned their lesson.
Money. So that those policies and that community spirit really framed the attitude that I believe is still extant all across our country. It's not often appealed to, and now it's being appealed to in worse ways, bad ways. But it is still there, and that spirit keeps percolating back up into life. So here in Texas, in the 1950s, the right wing had taken over the Democratic Party, which was the only party at the time. And we had 3 Democratic parties. We had the Republican version of the Democratic Party. We had the establishment Democrat version, and then we had the populist, radical muckraking version, which was Ralph Yarborough, who was a U.S. Senator from here. Terrific. But the progressives at that time knew, wait a minute, we're being shut out of everything. The media doesn't cover our stuff. You could have Ralph Yarborough could have 3,000 people attend an event in Dallas, Texas, and the next day in the Dallas Morning News wouldn't be a word about it. No mention of it.
A little bit of that going on today too, isn't there?
And Progressive then invented a slogan that said, if it happens in Dallas, it's news to us. That was the slogan of the Dallas News that they put on it. but they created their own media. They
Yeah.
created the Texas Observer,
Right.
and which continues today. And they had labor unions help to distribute money in rural areas so black people could pay their poll tax. You had to pay to vote
Right.
in those days. It amounted to
Right.
about $25 today. Now, it's hard enough to get people to vote
Right.
without saying, by the way, you got to pay $25.
Well, and we're trying some of those roadblocks today too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not
No.
necessarily a tax, but with all of the,
Yes.
hurdles we put in place to make it difficult for
Right.
people who are poor to vote.
Yeah.
A little bit of that going on again today, right?
More than a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's intentional.
Right.
And so that same intention to keep people from voting is to keep people down. Also, then spread throughout the education system.
Yeah.
So our school books don't mention the populist movement
At all.
at all. When I went through school, I never heard the word populist movement.
Right.
But one county away, in Fannin County, Bonham, Texas, 2,000 people rallied at a farm event there in that old country county. Big moment in history, but completely erased.
When I go out and talk to rural America, I'll hear this same thing, and I know you've heard it your entire life because I've heard you talk about it. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
Yeah.
And I always make the comment, well, you're right about one thing. We have changed. We're not as progressive, and we're not as big a hellraisers as we were at one time when all of rural America loved us.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party certainly hasn't gone further to the left over time.
No.
And that progressiveness and fighting for farmers to have rights and to be able to control the markets and to be able to compete, those were just stalwart democratic progressive ideas that were adopted everywhere.
Oh yeah. Again, it's just common sense. It's real life. It's what you would naturally think if you. There was a philosopher who was a teacher, and he would tell his classes, describe the society that you would like, that you think is the best.
Right.
And it doesn't matter, whether rich people run it, church runs it, doesn't matter. You describe what you like. And the only thing that you have to consider is that you don't know who you are in that society.
Yeah. What a great concept.
And that resulted in everybody saying the most progressive society, the most open society that they could
where
create.
everybody, regardless of who they are and where they come from, they get a fair shake and a fair
In our
crack.
party, the Democratic, as I say, some people say we need a third party. I wish we had a second one.
Yeah.
and it needs to be the old Progressive Democratic Party. And that is coming back, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's happening here in Texas right now. We've got some fantastic young Democrats that have come along. Greg Casar, member of Congress from right here in Austin, is an amazing, new, young, fiery, comes out of the labor organizing himself. Jasmine Crockett up in North Texas. So many good ones, as well as some of the old timers who are still in there scrapping.
And still fighting the good fight.
Yeah. So it's building up. And the more people get knocked down, the more they begin to say, well, wait a minute, we're in this together.
Those rumblings you can hear them.
Oh,
the way usually the way it happens with me, when I go out and speak, there'll be 300 or 400 people there, and I'd say it's about 60% Democrat, 30% Independent, and 10% Republican. When everybody else leaves the room, here comes 8 or 9 Republicans looking around to make sure nobody sees them, and they'll come up to the front of the room and they'll say, I made a mistake voting for this guy. And I always tell them 2 things. Number 1, welcome. We're glad to have you. And number 2, you've got to find the courage to start standing up amongst your own people and making that same statement.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then that led. Well, it was not till I went to college at the now University of North Texas that for the first time I saw the word populism in a history book. And had a professor there who taught what had happened there, and so that made me realize that's what I am. It defined me because it reflected where I grew up and the people I grew up
what you'd
with.
heard growing up and who you were as a person.
And so there it was, and so we have to spread that word, and we're doing that. We think your podcast, my Substack, and commentaries, speeches that we give. And then these new members of the legislatures in Congress, the new energy, and particularly the grassroots efforts that are going on. Well, like right here at this farm, this farm is better than 100 history lessons that you could get at the university.
I can't wait to tour it when you and I are done.
Right.
And
I mean, the people who come here, they come initially because they want good food, and they hear about this, and they come, and they like the idea of the kind of the local buying, and the farmers themselves being the ones selling it. But then they get the feel, they get the spirit. And they spread it, and more people come.
Well, and to your point, these new farm programs that we have all over the country, they're built on this old concept of making everybody either a row crop farmer or a cattle farmer.
Right.
And they go out and they help a young farmer, maybe in their late 20s, early 30s. They help them buy 200 acres and the cattle to go on it and all the equipment, or 300 acres and a combine, and they're $1 million in debt. And then they have one bad year, and hell, it's over.
Right. Exactly.
And you could help them do something like this intensive agriculture, and pay them a little salary for 3 years with all those subsidies we give to these big giant multi-million-dollar corporations.
Well, that's what we tried to do when I was agriculture commissioner here.
I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Well,
I don't want to be cognizant of your time, but I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
We quite deliberately got together to run for this office because we studied it and realized it had all this possibility, all this authority that was not being used, authority to help the people that we cared about, and then we defined that. We got together once I got elected. We got together and said, who are we trying to help? And most politicians say, well, I'm for everybody. No, you're not. Because
your record reflects
are running run over everybody. So you can't be for them because
you're not running for them if you're running over them, right?
So it's family farmers, farm workers, the land and water itself, the rural communities, rural education, health care. So these are we just wrote it all out. Here's what we want to do. Here's who we want to help. And then we said, all right, what could we do for them? And that included going out to them and saying, what could we do for you? Because we have a staff that we could put at your disposal. And that was the main breakthrough that we made, was not in getting new legislation to help small farmers. It was getting a staff, including Black and Mexican American and Asian American and women who were of those communities to go out and say, you want a farmer's market? I had campaigned on creating farmers markets like this one. Because
so this is part of your legacy in terms of from a policy perspective. That's a great legacy, Jim.
It really is. And when I ran, I was campaigning saying we ought to have farmers markets. I had an uncle up in Weatherford, Texas, who sold at a local farmers market. And when I was a little kid, I just loved it. I just thought, this is the most wonderful thing.
I still do. I go on Saturday mornings with my son and grandson and daughter-in-law. And it's just a wonderful experience. Even if you don't buy a damn thing, it's a great place to go.
Great. And so I campaigned on that. And the Dallas News ran an editorial saying, well, Hightower is just big government BS, because if the people wanted farmers markets, the free enterprise system would have created one.
Boy, do they have very little understanding of how it works, don't they?
So we had a staff, probably 6 people initially, and just sent them out to these communities and said, anybody here interested in starting a farmer's market? And so farmers came forward, they wanted it, consumers came in, churches came in, even a couple of supermarkets said we could have one on our parking lot here on Saturday morning, it'd be nice, and the local communities loved it, and so it became a thing, and so in a short time we had 100 farmers markets.
And I'd read an article a long time ago about the Hmong farmers from Vietnam, about how that had sprung up, the farmers markets for that group had sprung up during your time as agricultural commissioner.
Well, we even helped them get into agriculture because they were farmers who for disastrous situations back in the country ended up being migrants over here and refugees, and churches sponsored them to come in. The Catholic Church used to have a little catalog, actually, saying, do you need some Vietnamese? We got some Cambodians here. So it's kind of funny in concept, but in reality, it worked beautifully.
It really worked
and so,
well.
So I got together with Gary Morrow, who was the land commissioner at the time, and said, do you have any land? These people are farmers, and they're living in Houston. And Gary said, well, sure enough, he found they've got a plot of land there in Houston that's not doing anything, just vacant land. And so the two of us got together and brought them into farming and then connected them with markets, and it works, And we did that same thing with we helped start a watermelon cooperative down in outside of Houston, in the rural areas outside of Houston, and we went to Kroger. You got to start with a market. You can't say to farmers, produce this.
Right, just make it and we'll hope we sell it.
Right.
We're kind of doing a little bit of that right now.
Oh, yeah. So we went to Kroger. It was a big, is a huge store, and it was big in Houston. And so we went to them because they had run an ad for watermelons. And they were Georgia watermelons, and we said, "Excuse me, you're living in watermelon country,
that's right
here." And so, what have you bought some local melons? Well, we can't be going up and down the road buying watermelon. I said, "Understand, but we will help you form."
You put together the process for that, so they could get them all at one spot, even though they were raised in different places.
Exactly.
Love that.
And then so I literally rode a watermelon truck into Houston. To the first load to Kroger, and then they were able, because we had a program called Taste of Texas that had a label that promoted Texas products, and so they could run ads saying, we've got Texas watermelons, and that batch of Texas melons would sell out before one was even touched over here in the Georgia pile.
Jim, why do they fight that so hard? I know it's a little bit different concept, but why do they fight the country of label origin so hard when they know that it'll mean that we'll sell more American agricultural products if we do that?
Because they can make it, and because they are the farm agriculture. It's not poor people in Mexico.
Right. Our largest beef processing company is now Brazilian, and so it allows them just to amalgamate everything and sell it all as the same thing.
So they can be there and get it cheap. And then move it here and sell it at a high price. So they don't want that country of label.
That makes sense. Can I ask you one question about, you made a point that I run into when I go out there, and I wondered if this has changed over the years or if it's gotten worse. Anytime I make a video and talk about a policy issue, nobody ever comes in there and refutes it on the policy measures. Their favorite thing to do is to point out the obvious. Well, Will, you could afford to lose a few pounds, that kind of stuff. But did you run into the same thing when you had the patience to actually stand face to face with a farmer and cover the policy issue? Did you find that very rarely do they come up with a cogent argument to disagree with you? And how often were you able to win them over? And has that changed? Is it a lot harder to win them over now?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because the media is so predominant. The corporate media is so dominant. But no, because the people are still pretty common sense. And if you can talk to them and tell them stories, don't as I once said to a guy, don't dump your whole load on them. Every statistic you ever heard. Make a story. Tell the story about somebody you know or somebody they might know, and use a little humor with them. So if you do that, to me, as one who gives speeches, humor is the key that unlocks the mind.
That's what I try to do. I'm not saying I'm the best joke writer in the world. I steal off of you and Will Rogers a lot.
Well, you got to steal people's lines. Everybody stole everybody's lines. In fact, Lloyd Benson, who was a senator from Texas, and not a man with a great sense of humor generally, but he once told me that a great thing. He said, "Here's how you steal another person's line. First time you say, as Wes once said.
Yeah.
Next time you say, as somebody once said.
Yeah.
The third time you say, as I've always
said.
said.
Yes, I've always said. I love that.
So it's a process.
Yeah, I love that.
It's got an honesty to it.
That's
so
great.
We all steal. It's like every songwriter here in Austin, Texas. They steal.
They're all
each
played
other's
on the
lines
same
all
three
time.
chords.
Yeah,
they say.
right.
Yeah. You definitely.
And that's honest enough. It's good enough. And that's community too. Sharing.
Yeah.
Sharing that music or those stories, and that builds communities. So, So I find that you can talk to audiences.
Yeah. That's what I enjoy doing. And honestly, the more conservative they are, the more I feel like I'm doing the Lord's work.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you say, you can see their heads begin to nod. A little bit.
Yeah. Well, I want to be cognizant of your time, but I do have two things I want to get to. Okay. So, the first one I'm really interested in hearing. You've got a great history of fighting multiple different bad administrations and all the bad policies that come with that. How do you compare your big battles during the Reagan years and the Bush years to what's happening now? Yeah. What do you think are the big differences, and what's the difference in the strategy you take now versus what you were doing in the 90s?
Well, it is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
To one, have a positive program.
Yeah.
That's as bold as you can possibly be, because that's what people really want.
Right.
Now the ideologues will say, "Oh,
it's like Jesus said about the believer: we don't need any milk toast."
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So they want honesty, and if you're so there's no need trying to say, "Well, I'm a conservative," I'm not,
Yeah.
And that's just BS. So
that's a big mistake a lot of rural advocates make. They try to be Republican light to get their foot in the door.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody can see through that.
Yeah.
So just be yourself, be honest, and be bold about it.
Yeah.
The battles in those days, Reagan. I remember after the first term of Reagan, we were all saying, "Well, it can't get any worse than this."
Yeah.
Then came Bush.
And it did.
Then came Bush. And here we are.
Yeah.
With Trump.
Yeah.
So it can get worse. But you've got to rally people with your values.
Yeah.
Start with that. To me, American values are economic fairness, social justice, equal opportunity for all people. That's the big framework.
Right.
That's what we believe.
Boy, and are those three under attack now, Jim?
Yeah, I know. But that's what our society is meant to be. And
that's who we are, to your point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you build things around that. So programs flow from that. Again, we developed a marketing program, not to help the giant food manufacturers or the Farm Bureau row crop people, who are getting huge subsidies while dirt farmers are going broke right and left.
Right.
But to help the regular people at a local level with as much attention put on that as you can, because people appreciate it when this farm draws people who don't even come here necessarily for the food, though they do that. But it's bigger than that, and
people are drawn to their rural roots, even 2 or 3 generations separated from it.
Yeah. Because it is community for one thing.
I agree.
So that, and with Reagan, I had a line that Reagan promised us everybody was going to get a 7-course dinner.
Yeah.
And ours was a possum and a 6-pack.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and then the same thing happened with both Bushes pushed through tax cuts for the rich. So we took them on. George W. They tried to make him a rancher.
Right. So went out and bought him that ranch out there.
Him a ranch outside of Fort Worth and Dallas, and
which he sold right after he left office.
Yes.
Right.
Well, not only that, but it was a hell of a ranch because it didn't have any cattle.
Yeah. Yeah. Were they just the cardboard painted cattle?
Yeah. Right. He actually rented them. He had a dairy rancher that he allowed to put some cattle on his land.
Oh gosh, that it doesn't surprise me at all.
Claim that he's a rancher, and he would be out there in that cowboy hat. He as I said, it's got to be $1,000 hat. On a 10-cent head.
Yeah. Yeah. God bless him.
Right.
Yeah.
But, so that was. it's pretty easy to make, because they expose themselves as fools, you know.
Right.
You know, Bush would always say, they'd be every weekend almost, he was back at the ranch, you know.
Yeah.
And the media would come, of course, and be there with him, and they'd say, "What are you doing, Mr. President?" "Well, I'm clearing brush."
Yeah.
You know, I think they raised brush.
Yeah.
So he would have something to do.
Yeah.
On the weekends.
You know, that's what I tell people when they go to a town hall. If you can get a Republican to show up to a town hall,
Yeah.
I always tell them, don't necessarily rant and rave and yell and scream. Just ask them a question about agriculture.
Yeah, right.
And listen to them, because they're all like a cow looking at a new gate.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they don't understand it. They don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
And they certainly don't understand policies that are good for us. So
Yeah.
sometimes, to your point, it's just asking them a pointed question about what are you going to do to fix it, and
Yeah.
let people listen to what
Yeah.
they have to say.
And that's happening now.
Yeah.
A lot of these Republican Congress
Yeah.
people come back and talk about their big beautiful bill.
Yeah.
You know, and these guys say, well, so
I
they
beg to
begin,
differ.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they begin to talk about, you know, well, what about this farm bill that you're,
Yeah.
you know, well, that's gonna help the.
We're still working on
that's gonna
that.
help some people.
Yeah. Have you ever, Jim, I'd love to get your take on this, and then I promise I just have one more question.
All right.
But have you ever seen a politician like Donald J. Trump? When you think back over the years, is there anybody as self-grandizing and you know, so focused on grifting public office? Have you ever? Can you remember any other politician like him?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had, you know, horrible politicians
Yeah.
like Joe McCarthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you want to go back to that, and you
Yeah.
and you go back to some of the ones that Trump says he admires. Warren Harding, who was a complete fool.
Yeah.
And a tool of the money establishment.
And I don't believe for a minute he could name a single thing Warren Harding did.
No.
He probably liked the picture.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So no, but you know, we've had some real bad members of Congress and legislatures and governors and whatnot. I mean, some of it's comical. You know, we had Paul Ferguson was our governor here in Texas.
Yeah.
Paul Ferguson got indicted, so he couldn't run again, or didn't run again.
Yeah.
But he put his wife up. So Maul Ferguson was the governor, and there was a bill to was sponsored to have Spanish language courses in schools, and so it was a big tussle of whether she was going to sign the bill or not, and she came out against it, saying that if English was good enough for Jesus Christ, it's good enough for the school children in Texas.
Right.
So,
I remember that. That is something they put in our history books, believe it or not. At least they used to.
Yeah, right.
They used to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let me ask you the last question, because I know I got 3 minutes, so I'm going to use all 3 minutes.
Okay.
My last question is, I heard you say one time that you're going to work half a day on your funeral.
Yeah.
You said you're going to keep going right till the very end.
Yeah.
And tell us what you're doing now. I know, but I want
Yeah.
everybody else to hear it. What keeps you going every day? How are you still getting the word out? You have done what a lot of people have not done, which is grasp this new technology that's out there. Just tell us about everything you're doing.
Well, you know, I've spent my life trying not to have a real job.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm working on it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so once I was out of politics, running for office, I was a little at odds and didn't quite know where I was going. But then I talked to some people. Bill Moyers was one of them. Norman Lear was another one. There's some people who had supported me, and they said, Ralph Nader, for example, said, "This is great. Now you're free. You don't have to be tied to an office. You can go out and just do all this." And Norman Lear helped me get into radio, and Bill Moyers said, do that newsletter that you're talking about. He referred to
the world famous newsletter.
The Hightower Lowdown.
And I would encourage everybody. Some of those have been scanned and put out on the internet. If you've got a rainy Saturday on the farm and you want some damn good education, go back and read those newsletters.
And we're continuing that now with, as you say, the new technology, Substack. A year ago I didn't know what a Substack was. And now I am one.
Well, you just happen to make it one of the biggest ones out there, so congratulations on that.
Well, it's one of the, it's essentially an email newsletter.
Right.
And so it's very inexpensive to do. And that was the big thing. Because printing a newsletter, the cost of paper had tripled and postage had doubled. and so it became impossible, financially impossible to keep going.
And people are so transient now. And,
yeah. So and newsletters didn't reach young people. But they were hot on the Substack thing. And so again, some good people helped me there. Michael Moore was doing a Substack, and some others. Nader had one, and et cetera. So we got some advice, and got connected to the kind of Substack people themselves, the ones who coordinate that and operate it.
Oh, I'm sure they were champing at the bit to get a warhorse in there.
Well, and it has worked out. So we've been able to make a go of it, and particularly that it's reaching young people. And so I'm on TikTok.
Well, you know what? Well, I'm going to hold you to your promise at the rural PAC meeting we went to, and I'd love to have you come on mine, and I'd be happy to do the same thing.
And that's the other thing we do is I think the attractiveness of my podcast, or Substack, and commentaries, radio. So we're on about 150 radio stations around the country too. Is that one, it's not all gloom and doom. We tell the hard stories, but we also tell, here's a group that's doing something about it. And you can be in touch with them. Here's how.
I love that part of it.
Connect with them, and then you'll connect with others, and we build this thing. So it is an organizing tool in itself. It's not just here's wisdom from.
Well, everybody's mastered the art of standing on the town square and bitching about what's going on. We try to do the same thing at the Back 40. It's like, let's find solutions. Let's offer people hope. What would your words of hope be, Jim, in closing? You know, everybody's discouraged. We feel like our democracy's at stake. You've done this a long time, and you've fought every battle there is to fight. What are your words of encouragement to everyone?
The people themselves. I mean, if I lived in Washington for 10 years, back worked for Ralph Yarborough when he was in the Senate, and did some other stuff, and I once I moved back to Texas, I found that people who stayed there of my age were kind of depressed. You know? And I would be too if I had if that was my
your stomping
community,
grounds.
And that's where I got my information. Or if you got it from the TV set, then you'd think the world's gone to hell. You know? And in many ways it has. But the good news is people are doing something about it.
That's right.
In every precinct that there is in Texas, just about every zip code that there's somebody or some group of somebodies who are trying to make things better. And more often than not, they're winning, which is a story that the corporate media doesn't tell.
They don't tell. That's
just like those old days, this corporate media doesn't want you thinking that you can take on corporate power.
To your point, there are so many talented young people out there. You know, and I'm kind of going into that area of my life where I realize now I'm not young anymore. You know, but you're absolutely right about that.
When I turned 70, I realized that I'm now too old to die young.
So I'm kind of getting there myself.
Might as well just go for
I'm knocking on the door, as they
other
say.
End of it. But anyway, I'm much encouraged by grassroots people, and a lot of activists and organizers and good number of politicians who are honest, decent, but gutsy. And that's the main thing that I believe in. That you've got to, if you don't stand up for what you believe, then why should anybody stand up for you? And that's what the Democratic Party is.
Or as Grandpa used to say, if you're a leader and nobody's following you, you're just a guy taking a walk. Jim, thank you.
Alrighty,
I really appreciate it. And I hope we get to have more of these conversations over the years. So good deal. Thanks. All right. I sure appreciate it. That was great.